Bear cub was held upside down in a hunter's snare. What this baby did was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. In the gentle light of dawn, mist curled between ancient trees, painting the forest in watercolor hues of amber and gold. A wooden cabin stood nestled among towering pines, its chimney releasing a thin trail of smoke that dissolved into the morning air. Inside, 4-month-old Emma lay awake in her crib, cooing softly as sunbeams danced across her blanket. Her wide blue eyes followed dust motes floating in the light, while her tiny fingers reached upward, grasping at nothing and everything. Outside, the forest stirred with life. Birds called to one another in a language as old as the trees themselves. A young bear cub, no more than 3 months old, ventured away from his sleeping mother. His dark fur glistened with morning dew as he padded curiously through ferns and over fallen logs, following the enticing scent of berries growing near the edge of a small clearing. Emma's parents, Olivia and Nathan Reed, moved quietly around the cabin's modest kitchen. They had moved to this remote spot just before Emma's birth, seeking solace from city life and hoping to raise their daughter surrounded by nature's wonders. Nathan poured steaming coffee into 2 mugs while Olivia gently rocked the bassinet they'd placed near the kitchen window. "She loves watching the trees," Olivia whispered, stroking Emma's cheek with her finger. "Sometimes I think she sees things we don't." Nathan smiled, passing his wife a steaming mug. "Maybe she does. My grandmother always said babies can see the spirits of the forest." The morning light strengthened, burning away wisps of fog and illuminating a small path leading from the cabin to the nearby stream. Neither parent noticed when Emma's gaze fixed on something beyond the window glass, her tiny body suddenly still with attention. In the forest, the bear cub's playful exploration had taken a dangerous turn. Hidden beneath a carpet of fallen leaves and pine needles lay a cruel metal trap, its teeth disguised by expert hands. The hunter who had set it weeks ago had abandoned this territory, forgetting this last snare in his haste to move to more promising grounds. The cub sniffed at a cluster of bright berries, his small paws crushing the fragrant leaves beneath him. With one more step, his weight triggered the forgotten trap. Metal jaws snapped shut with a harsh clang that shattered the morning peace. The snare, designed to catch and hold rather than kill outright, seized the cub's hind leg and jerked him upward with brutal efficiency. A system of ropes and pulleys, meant to hoist larger prey off the ground to prevent escape, now held the small cub suspended upside down, dangling 3 feet above the forest floor. His terrified cry pierced the air, a sound of such pure anguish that birds took flight from nearby branches in alarm. The cub thrashed wildly, his small body swinging in desperate circles as he tried to free himself. Each movement only tightened the snare's grip, the coarse rope digging deeper into his fur. In the cabin, Emma's face crumpled as if she had heard the distant cry. Her soft cooing changed to an insistent whimper, her small hands balling into fists. Olivia looked down in surprise. "What's wrong, little one?" she asked, lifting Emma from the bassinet. "Are you hungry already?" But Emma's eyes remained fixed on the window, her whimpers growing more urgent. When Olivia turned to check what might have caught her daughter's attention, she saw only trees swaying gently in the morning breeze. "Nathan, I'm going to try to feed her," Olivia said, carrying Emma to the rocking chair in the corner. "Could you bring in more firewood before breakfast? It's getting colder every night." Nathan nodded, setting down his coffee. "I'll just be a few minutes. There's plenty stacked by the shed." As he stepped outside, the cabin door creaking shut behind him, He paused to breathe in the crisp morning air. The forest seemed unusually quiet, but he thought nothing of it, heading toward the woodshed with purposeful strides. His path took him away from the clearing where the bear cub continued to struggle, its cries growing weaker as exhaustion set in. Inside the cabin, Olivia had settled into the rocking chair, but Emma refused to nurse. The infant squirmed and fussed, her tiny face reddening with frustration. When Olivia placed her back in the bassinet to prepare a bottle instead, Emma's whimpers escalated to proper cries. "What's gotten into you this morning?" Olivia asked, bewildered by her normally placid baby's behavior. As she turned to the kitchen counter to prepare formula, she didn't notice how Emma's small body stiffened, her attention completely focused on something beyond the glass. Outside, the bear cub's mother had awakened to find her offspring missing. Her powerful body moved through the underbrush with growing urgency, following her cub's scent toward the deadly trap. The scene was now set, a helpless cub dangling in pain, a protective mother bear approaching, and a baby seemingly aware of the unfolding drama. In the peaceful cabin, no one suspected how these separate worlds were about to collide in ways that would challenge everything they understood about the boundaries between humans and the wild. Emma's cries grew more frantic, her tiny face flushed with an urgency that puzzled Olivia. Outside, Nathan paused halfway to the woodpile, his attention caught by an unusual sound carried on the wind, something between a whimper and a desperate cry. He tilted his head, listening. Years of living in various wilderness areas had taught him to recognize the voices of the forest. But this sound stirred something primal in him. It wasn't just an animal in distress, there was something unusually haunting about the tone. "Probably just a fox," he muttered to himself, trying to dismiss the unease creeping up his spine. But instead of continuing to the woodpile, he found himself drawn toward the sound, moving cautiously through the trees. Inside the cabin, Emma had worked herself into such a state that Olivia was becoming genuinely concerned. She'd tried everything, feeding, changing, rocking, but nothing would console her daughter. "What is it, sweet girl? What's wrong?" she whispered, bouncing Emma gently against her shoulder. The baby's wails only intensified, her small body arching as if trying to point toward the window. Olivia crossed to the glass, peering out anxiously. "Nathan?" she called, suddenly aware that her husband had been gone longer than it should take to gather firewood. The forest beyond the cabin looked peaceful, bathed in soft morning light, revealing nothing of the drama unfolding deeper among the trees. Making a quick decision, Olivia wrapped Emma in a blanket and stepped onto the porch. "Nathan," she called again, louder this time. Only the whisper of leaves answered her. In the clearing, the bear cub's strength was failing. Its small body hung limply now, twisting slightly in the morning breeze. Blood matted the fur around its trapped leg, and its eyes were half closed with exhaustion. Each breath came as a shallow gasp. Had it been able to understand its situation, it might have given up hope entirely. The mother bear crashed through the undergrowth, her powerful nose leading her unerringly toward her cub. She paused every few yards, rising onto her hind legs to taste the air, her sensitive ears swiveling to catch any sound. When the scent of her cub mingled with the metallic tang of blood, her pace quickened, branches snapping beneath her weight. Nathan approached the clearing cautiously, staying downwind and moving as quietly as his boots would allow on the forest floor. He crossed an ancient fallen log, its surface soft with moss, and then froze at the sight before him. The suspended bear cub hung motionless, its small chest barely moving with each shallow breath. Nathan's heart sank. He recognized the type of trap, an old-fashioned snare designed by poachers who prized bear parts for the black market. Such traps were illegal in these woods. His first instinct was to help the cub, but experience held him back. Where there was a cub, a mother was never far away. Rescuing the little one could mean putting himself directly in the path of one of nature's most formidable defenders. He scanned the trees, calculating his options. Back at the cabin's edge, Olivia hesitated. Taking Emma deeper into the forest seemed foolish, but her husband's continued absence worried her. Emma had stopped crying, but her little body remained tense, her gaze fixed over Olivia's shoulder toward the trees. "Your daddy's fine," Olivia said, more to reassure herself than her infant daughter. "He knows these woods better than anyone." A sudden crash from the forest made her jump. Birds erupted from the treetops, their wings flapping in panic. Olivia clutched Emma tighter, backing toward the cabin door. Then she heard Nathan's voice, a desperate shout that chilled her blood. "Olivia, get inside, now!" Before she could move, Nathan burst from the tree line, running flat out toward the cabin. Behind him, moving with surprising speed for her size, came the mother bear, her powerful shoulders hunched with rage, her teeth bared in a snarl that promised death. Olivia stood frozen in terror. Emma clutched against her chest. The distance between Nathan and the bear was closing rapidly. He wouldn't make it to the cabin before the bear caught him. They all knew it in that suspended moment of horror. Then, something extraordinary happened. Emma let out a sound unlike anything Olivia had ever heard from her daughter. Not a cry or a wail, but something ancient and primal, a sound that seemed to vibrate through the clearing. The mother bear skidded to a halt, her massive head swinging toward Olivia and the baby. For an eternal moment, the bear's small eyes locked with Emma's. Woman, man, bear, and baby existed in perfect stillness, connected by something beyond understanding. Then the bear huffed, a cloud of vapor emerging from her nostrils in the cool morning air. She rose onto her hind legs, towering 7 feet tall, her front paws dangling as she stared at the small bundle in Olivia's arms. Nathan used the distraction to change direction, no longer running for the cabin, but circling wide around the bear, trying to reach his wife and child. "Don't move," he called softly. "Don't run." Olivia couldn't have moved if she tried. Fear had rooted her to the spot. Yet, strangely, Emma remained calm, her eyes still locked with the bear's, as if they were communicating in some silent language. The bear dropped back to all fours with a thud that Olivia felt through the soles of her feet, but instead of charging, the animal turned and lumbered back toward the forest, casting one last glance over her massive shoulder at the baby. Nathan reached Olivia, grabbing her arm. "Inside, now." "What happened?" Olivia gasped as he pulled them through the cabin door, slamming it shut behind them. "Why was it chasing you?" Nathan leaned against the door, his chest heaving. "Her cub. It's caught in a trap. I was trying to free it when she showed up. I barely got away." He looked down at Emma, who had settled into a peaceful calm that seemed impossible after the chaos of the previous hour. "What was that sound she made?" Olivia shook her head, equally bewildered. "I don't know. I've never heard anything like it." She placed Emma in her bassinet, where the baby immediately began to fuss again, her tiny hands reaching toward the window. "She wasn't going to attack us," Olivia said suddenly, the realization dawning on her as she watched her daughter. "The bear, she stopped. She looked at Emma and just stopped." Nathan ran a hand through his hair, his forester's training battling with what he had just witnessed. "That's not possible. A mother bear with a threatened cub is the most dangerous animal in these woods." "I know what I saw," Olivia insisted, "and I think Emma does too." She looked down at their daughter, who continued to squirm and fuss, her eyes fixed on the window with single-minded determination. "She's been trying to tell us something all morning." Nathan paced the small cabin, conflict evident in every line of his body. "The cub won't survive much longer in that trap," he finally said, "and when it dies, we'll have a grief-maddened mother bear in our vicinity. We need to call the rangers, get them out here with tranquilizers." He reached for his satellite phone, but Olivia placed her hand over his. "The nearest ranger station is 2 hours away. That cub doesn't have 2 hours." She lifted Emma from the bassinet, the baby immediately settling against her shoulder. I think we're supposed to help." "That's insane," Nathan protested. "You want to take our baby near a wild bear? Based on what? Some feeling? Some coincidence that the bear didn't attack?" "It wasn't a coincidence," Olivia said with quiet certainty. "You know it wasn't." Outside, the forest had gone eerily silent. The mother bear paced at the edge of the clearing, occasionally rising on her hind legs to stare toward the cabin. Her cub's whimpers had grown so faint they were barely audible, each one stabbing into Nathan's conservationist heart. He closed his eyes, weighing impossible choices. Everything he knew about wildlife management told him to wait for professionals. Everything he felt as a human being told him the cub would die while they waited. And something deeper, something that resonated with his grandmother's old stories about the connection between children and the natural world, whispered that his daughter somehow understood more than either of them. "If we do this," he said finally, opening his eyes to meet Olivia's gaze, "we do it my way. You stay on the porch with Emma. I'll approach the cub alone." "The mother won't let you near it again," Olivia pointed out. Nathan reached for his rifle, kept loaded for emergencies. "This is just a precaution. A warning shot might give me enough time to free the cub and get away." "No," Olivia said firmly. "No guns. I think Emma needs to be there. Have you lost your mind? We are not using our baby as some kind of bear whisperer." As they argued, a new sound joined the morning chorus, the rumble of an approaching vehicle. They both froze, exchanging confused glances. The cabin was miles from the nearest road, accessible only by their own rugged jeep or by foot. Nathan moved to the window, peering out cautiously. A dust-covered pickup truck had pulled into the clearing before their cabin. The door opened, and an elderly Native American man stepped out slowly, leaning on a carved wooden staff. "Who the hell is that?" Nathan murmured, watching as the old man stood perfectly still, surveying the cabin and then the forest beyond. "I've seen him before," Olivia whispered. "At the trading post in town. They call him Old Joseph. He's from the local tribe, some kind of elder or medicine man." The old man turned toward the cabin and raised his hand in greeting, as if he knew they were watching. Without hesitation, he began walking toward the forest edge, directly toward where the mother bear paced in agitation. "He's going to get himself killed," Nathan exclaimed, reaching for the door. But when he yanked it open, the scene before him defied all explanation. Old Joseph stood 10 feet from the massive bear, speaking in a low voice, not to them, but to the animal. The bear had stopped pacing and was watching him, her ears flicking forward with attention. After a moment that stretched like eternity, the bear huffed and moved aside, creating a path toward the clearing where her cub hung motionless. The old man turned toward the cabin and beckoned with one gnarled hand. "He wants us to come out," Olivia said, already moving toward the door with Emma in her arms. Nathan blocked her way. "This is madness. We don't know this man. We can't trust that bear." "I think we're meant to," Olivia replied, her voice filled with a certainty that brooked no argument. "I think Emma's been trying to tell us that all morning." As if in agreement, Emma cooed softly, her previous distress completely gone. Her eyes, so like her father's in shape and her mother's in color, seemed older somehow, knowing in a way that sent shivers of recognition through both parents. "The legends say children can see what we have forgotten," old Joseph called to them, his voice surprisingly strong for his apparent age. "Your daughter has been calling to me since dawn. I would not ignore such a summons, and neither should you." Nathan and Olivia exchanged one last look. Fear meeting faith, logic battling instinct. Then, with Emma between them, they stepped out to meet whatever destiny awaited them at the edge of the wilderness. The mother bear watched their approach, her massive body tense but no longer aggressive. Old Joseph waited until they stood beside him before speaking again. "The balance is broken here," he said simply, gesturing toward the cub. "Your child knows it must be restored." "How do you know about our daughter?" Nathan asked, suspicion warring with the evidence before his eyes. The old man smiled, the wrinkles around his eyes deepening. "She called to the forest spirits with a voice purer than any I have heard in many years. Such calls echo through channels you have forgotten how to hear." He touched Emma's head gently. "But she remembers. All children do until we teach them to forget." Emma gurgled happily at his touch, reaching for the wooden beads that hung around his neck. "The cub will die soon," old Joseph continued, his face growing serious. "And something valuable will be lost from this forest. Not just a bear, but a connection, a trust." He looked meaningfully at Emma. "Your daughter understands this. That is why she called for help, not just for the bear, but for all of you." "What do you want us to do?" Olivia asked, finding herself believing this strange man despite the impossibility of it all. "The mother must understand we mean to help, not harm," Joseph replied. "I have told her, but she needs to see proof of our intentions." He nodded toward Emma. "The innocent one must show the way." Before either parent could protest, old Joseph gently took Emma from Olivia's arms. Moving with surprising swiftness for his age, he stepped toward the mother bear, holding the baby out slightly. Nathan lunged forward, a cry of protest torn from his throat. Olivia grabbed his arm, holding him back with unexpected strength. "Wait," she whispered. "Just wait." The bear rose again on her hind legs, her snout inches from Emma's tiny form. The baby showed no fear, reaching out one small hand toward the massive predator. For a breathless moment, life itself seemed suspended. Then, incredibly, the bear lowered her head, allowing Emma's fingers to brush against her fur. Old Joseph nodded in satisfaction. "Now we may help her child, and she will allow it." He handed Emma back to Olivia. "Stay here. The man and I will free the cub." Nathan found himself following the old man into the forest without protest, his world view shattering and reforming with each step. The bear padded alongside them, leading the way to her cub. The trap, when they reached it, was worse than Nathan had first thought. An illegal poacher's device designed to capture a bear by the leg and then hoist it upward, preventing escape while keeping the pelt undamaged. "Monstrous," Nathan muttered, examining the mechanism. "Man's cruelty is only matched by his capacity for kindness," old Joseph replied. "Today we choose which path to walk." He pointed to the pulley system. "You must climb and cut the rope there, while I keep the cub calm. The mother will watch, but she will not interfere if we are gentle." Working together, with the mother bear's dark eyes following their every move, they managed to lower the cub safely to the ground. Nathan used wire cutters from his pocket to free the bloodied leg from the metal teeth of the trap. The cub lay still, breathing shallowly, its eyes barely open. "Will it survive?" Nathan asked, his heart aching at the creature's suffering. Old Joseph placed his hands on the cub, closing his eyes. The body is damaged, but the spirit is strong. Like calls to like, your daughter's spirit called to this one. There is a purpose here we do not yet understand. The mother bear approached cautiously, sniffing her injured cub. With infinite gentleness, she began to lick the wound, her rough tongue cleaning away blood and dirt. "We should go," old Joseph said, rising stiffly. "They need time alone." As they walked back toward the cabin, where Olivia waited with Emma at the forest's edge, Nathan found his voice again. "How did you know to come here?" "How did my daughter call you?" The old man smiled mysteriously. "The old ways are not gone, just sleeping. Your daughter was born with the gift of remembering what most have forgotten. She will need guidance as she grows." "You think she's what? Psychic? Some kind of bear whisperer?" Nathan could hear the skepticism returning to his voice now that the immediate danger had passed. "I think she is a bridge," old Joseph replied simply. "In the old days, every tribe had those who could speak the language of the forest, of the animals. We called them many names: dreamers, spirit walkers, medicine people. Your people forgot these gifts, called them superstition and fairy tales. But the earth remembers, and sometimes a child is born who remembers too." They reached Olivia and Emma, the latter reaching excitedly for her father. As Nathan took his daughter in his arms, he felt a connection to her that transcended the ordinary bond of parent and child. In her eyes he saw wisdom and wildness together, a reflection of something he had glimpsed in the bear's gaze. "This place," old Joseph said, gesturing to the forest around them, "is special ground. The boundaries between worlds are thin here. That is why the bears came, why your daughter could hear them." He looked at the family with kind eyes. "And it is why you were drawn here, though you did not know it." "What happens now?" Olivia asked, slipping her hand into Nathan's. The old man shrugged. "You have choices to make. You can dismiss this as a strange coincidence, a tale you will tell, but not truly believe. Or you can recognize the gift your daughter carries and help her learn to use it wisely." He turned toward his truck. "I will return in 7 days. By then, you will know your path." As old Joseph drove away, the family stood at the edge of the forest. The mother bear appeared briefly at the tree line, her massive form silhouetted against the morning light. She rose onto her hind legs one last time, as if in salute, then disappeared into the green depths. "Do you think the cub will survive?" Olivia asked softly. "I don't know," Nathan admitted. "But I think we were meant to try to save it." He looked down at Emma, peacefully sleeping in his arms now that her mission was accomplished. "And I think our daughter somehow knew that." As they turned back toward the cabin, a soft breeze carried the scent of pine and earth around them. The forest watched, ancient and knowing, as its newest protector slept in her father's arms, unaware of the destiny that was already unfolding around her like unfurling leaves reaching for the sun. The next morning dawned with tendrils of fog clinging to the treetops. Nathan sat on the porch steps, coffee mug cradled between his palms, watching the forest with new eyes. He'd barely slept, his mind replaying yesterday's impossible events on an endless loop. The mother bear's intelligent gaze, old Joseph's cryptic words, and most disturbing of all, his infant daughter's apparent connection to it all. "You're up early," Olivia said, stepping onto the porch with Emma nestled against her shoulder. The baby was unusually calm this morning, her eyes tracking the movement of a nearby chickadee as it flitted between branches. "Couldn't sleep," Nathan admitted. "Keep thinking about what happened, what it means." Olivia settled beside him, adjusting Emma on her lap. "Do you believe it? What Joseph said about Emma?" Nathan took another sip of coffee, buying time. As a wildlife biologist with years of field experience, he'd been trained to observe, document, and draw rational conclusions. Yesterday defied rational explanation. The bear should have attacked. Every instinct, every protective maternal drive should have sent her charging toward the threat to her cub. Instead, she had recognized something in Emma, something that transcended the natural order as he understood it. "I don't know what I believe," he finally answered, "but I can't deny what I saw." Olivia nodded, absently stroking Emma's fine hair. "Last night I dreamed of bears," she said quietly. "Not frightening dreams, it was peaceful. They were watching over us, protecting us." She met her husband's gaze. "Do you think we should leave? Take Emma somewhere, normal?" The question hung between them, weighted with implications. They had chosen this isolated spot for its beauty and tranquility, wanting their daughter to grow up connected to nature. Neither had anticipated just how literal that connection might become. "Let's give it the week," Nathan suggested. "See if Joseph comes back as he promised. In the meantime, I want to check on that cub." Olivia's eyebrows rose. "Is that safe?" "I'll be careful," he assured her. "I just need to see if it survived the night." He didn't add that he also wanted to remove the trap entirely, ensuring no other animals would fall victim to its cruel mechanism. After breakfast, Nathan packed a small bag with first aid supplies, a canteen of water, and his camera. Years of fieldwork had taught him to document everything, though he doubted he'd be sharing these particular photographs with his colleagues at the university. Some things were too extraordinary to be believed without experiencing them firsthand. "Be back before lunch," he promised, kissing Olivia and Emma goodbye. His daughter reached for him with unexpected urgency, her small fingers grasping at his beard. "She wants to go with you," Olivia said, surprise evident in her voice. Nathan shook his head. "Too dangerous. If that cub didn't make it—" "I know," Olivia agreed. "Just hurry back. I think she'll be restless until you do." The forest welcomed Nathan differently today, where once he had moved through it as an observer, a scientist cataloging its wonders from a careful distance, now he felt almost like an invited guest. Birds didn't scatter at his approach, and twice he spotted deer watching him without fleeing. He followed the now familiar path to the clearing, moving quietly out of habit rather than necessity. The trap hung empty, its metal jaws stained with dried blood. Nathan approached cautiously, scanning the surrounding trees for any sign of the bears. Finding none, he set to work dismantling the cruel device, his hands moving with practiced efficiency. As he worked, a sense of being watched prickled the back of his neck. He turned slowly, half expecting to find the mother bear looming behind him. Instead, he found himself staring at a man dressed in camouflage clothing, a rifle slung over one shoulder, and the expression of cold fury on his weathered face. "That's private property you're messing with," the stranger said, his voice like gravel. Nathan straightened, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. "This trap is illegal in protected forest land," he replied evenly. "Are you claiming responsibility for setting it?" The man spat on the ground. "I'm claiming you're trespassing. These woods belong to whoever knows how to use them." His eyes narrowed. "You're that university fella, aren't you? Moved into old Miller's cabin with your city wife?" "Nathan Reed," he confirmed, noting with unease how the man's hand rested near his rifle. "And you are?" "Wade Harmon," the man answered. "My family's been hunting these mountains since before your university existed." He nodded toward the dismantled trap. "Bear population's out of control. They're vermin. Just doing my part to thin the herd." Nathan felt a surge of anger, but kept his voice measured. "Black bears are a protected species in this region. If you have concerns about population management, there are legal channels. Don't need no government telling me how to manage my hunting grounds, Wade interrupted. Found some interesting tracks this morning. Mother bear with a cub. Injured by the looks of it. His eyes glinted. Wounded bears are dangerous. Might have to put them down before they become a problem. The threat was barely veiled. Nathan thought of the bears, of old Joseph's words about connections and balance, of Emma's inexplicable bond with the forest. I wouldn't advise that, he said carefully. Wade laughed, an ugly sound that scattered nearby birds. Wasn't asking for advice, Professor. He shouldered his rifle, not pointing it at Nathan but making its presence known. Just giving you fair warning. Keep to your cabin and your books. The real forest isn't a place for your kind. With that, he turned and disappeared into the trees, moving with the silent efficiency of someone who knew every root and hollow. Nathan stood motionless, his heart pounding. The encounter had shaken him more than he wanted to admit. Wade's threat to the bears felt personal, in a way he couldn't entirely explain. Completing his task with renewed urgency, Nathan gathered the dismantled trap into his pack. He would report it to the rangers, though he suspected Wade Harmon was well known to them already. Men like him existed in every wilderness area, self-appointed guardians of the old ways, resistant to conservation efforts and scientific management. As he prepared to head back to the cabin, a soft huffing sound froze him in place. Turning slowly, he found himself face to face with the mother bear. She stood 20 feet away, watching him with those intelligent eyes that had haunted his dreams. Beside her, limping but very much alive, was her cub. "Hey there," Nathan said softly, crouching to appear less threatening. "You made it, little one." The cub regarded him with wary curiosity, staying close to its mother's massive form. The wound on its leg had been thoroughly cleaned, though it clearly favored the limb. Against all his training, Nathan found himself speaking to them as he would to intelligent beings. "There's a man looking for you," he told them, feeling only slightly foolish. "A hunter. You need to go deeper into the forest, away from these trails." To his astonishment, the mother bear huffed again and turned away, nudging her cub in the opposite direction from where Wade had disappeared. They moved with purpose, the mother occasionally glancing back as if to ensure Nathan was watching their departure. "That's right," he encouraged. "Good girl, keep going." When they had vanished among the trees, Nathan sat heavily on a fallen log, his scientific mind struggling to process what he'd witnessed. Bears were intelligent animals, capable of complex problem-solving and memory. But this level of understanding, this apparent comprehension of human speech and intent, went beyond anything documented in scientific literature. Either he was projecting human characteristics onto animal behavior, a cardinal sin in his profession, or something truly extraordinary was happening in these woods. Something connected to his daughter. The thought sent him hurrying back toward the cabin, a sense of protective urgency driving his steps. He arrived to find Olivia pacing the porch with a fussy Emma, relief washing over her face at his appearance. "Thank goodness," she breathed. "Emma's been inconsolable for the past hour. Did you find the bears?" Nathan nodded, dropping his pack on the porch. "The cubs survived. They're both okay." He took Emma from Olivia's arms, and the baby immediately settled, her small hands patting his face as if checking he was unharmed. "But we have another problem. There's a hunter in the woods. Wade Harmon. He's looking for them." Olivia's face paled. "Did he see you with them?" "No," Nathan assured her. "But he knows they're out there, and he doesn't seem like the type to worry about hunting regulations." "What do we do?" Nathan bounced Emma gently, thinking. I'm going to call the ranger station, report the illegal trap. They can send someone to patrol the area, maybe discourage Wade from hunting protected species. He didn't mention his nagging fear that by the time rangers arrived, it might already be too late. Inside the cabin, Nathan reached for the satellite phone, then paused with his hand hovering over it. A strange sensation swept through him, a certainty that calling the authorities wasn't the right move, at least not yet. It felt like an external thought, planted in his mind from elsewhere. "Nathan?" Olivia asked, noticing his hesitation. "What's wrong?" He shook his head, trying to clear it. "Nothing, just weighing our options." He looked down at Emma, who gazed back with those knowing eyes that seemed to hold secrets no infant should possess. "Maybe we should wait for Joseph to return. He seems to understand what's happening here better than we do." "That's days away," Olivia pointed out. "If that hunter is looking for the bears now—" The satellite phone rang before Nathan could respond, startling them both. Few people had their number, and fewer still used it for anything but emergencies. Nathan answered cautiously. "Reed residence." "Nathan?" A familiar voice crackled through the connection. "It's Daniel Shaw from the department. Have you checked your email?" "We're off-grid up here, Daniel," Nathan reminded his colleague. "What's going on?" "The university's pulling funding for the forest corridor study," Daniel said, frustration evident even through the patchy connection. "Some big timber company bought the land rights. They're talking about clear-cutting sections for development. Luxury cabins, some kind of wilderness retreat for rich folks." Nathan's stomach dropped. "They can't do that. This area is supposed to be protected under the Conservation Trust." "There's been some political maneuvering," Daniel replied grimly. "Money changing hands in the right places. The trust boundaries have been reinterpreted. I thought you should know, seeing as you're living right in the middle of it." "When is this happening?" "Survey teams are scheduled to start marking trees next week. Construction could begin by next month if they fast-track the permits." After thanking Daniel and promising to call back, Nathan hung up and relayed the conversation to Olivia. Her face grew increasingly troubled as she absorbed the implications. "So, it's not just the bears that are in danger," she said. "It's the entire forest." Nathan nodded grimly. "And us. Our home." He paced the small living room, thinking aloud. This can't be a coincidence. First, Emma's connection to the bears, then old Joseph showing up, now this threat to the entire ecosystem. "You think they're connected?" Olivia asked, settling Emma in her play area on a soft quilt. "I don't know. But something bigger is happening here than a baby with an unusual affinity for wildlife." He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I need more information. About Joseph. About the local tribe's connection to these woods." Olivia was quiet for a moment, watching Emma happily batting at a hanging mobile of wooden stars. "There's a small museum in town," she suggested. "Run by the tribal council. They might have historical records, stories about this area." "It's worth a shot," Nathan agreed. "We could go tomorrow." Their planning was interrupted by a sound from outside, the distinctive crunch of tires on the gravel drive. Nathan moved to the window, then relaxed slightly when he recognized the Forest Service logo on the side of the approaching SUV. "Rangers," he told Olivia, "must be doing their regular patrol." But when the vehicle stopped and the driver emerged, Nathan realized this was no routine visit. Ranger Kate Summers was the head of enforcement for the entire district, a no-nonsense woman with 2 decades of experience and a legendary intolerance for rule breakers. She'd worked with Nathan on several research projects, respecting his scientific approach while occasionally teasing him for his city-bred caution in the backcountry. "Kate," he greeted her, stepping onto the porch, "this is a surprise." The ranger removed her broad-brimmed hat, revealing cropped gray hair and a deeply tanned face lined from years of outdoor work. Nathan, been hearing some strange reports from this area. Her sharp eyes took in the cabin, the surrounding clearing, finally settling back on him with uncomfortable intensity. Thought I'd check in. Strange reports? He asked, keeping his tone casual. Kate nodded. One of our wildlife cameras caught something interesting 2 nights ago. Bear with a cub, moving through Mackenzie Ridge. Cub had what looked like a snare injury to its back leg. Her gaze hardened slightly. You know anything about that? Nathan hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. Before he could decide, Olivia appeared in the doorway with Emma in her arms. Ranger Summers, she said warmly. Would you like some coffee? We just brewed a fresh pot. Kate's weathered face softened slightly at the sight of the baby. Wouldn't say no to that. Your little one's growing fast. Inside the cabin, while Olivia poured coffee, the ranger got straight to the point. Had a call from Wade Harmon this morning. Claims someone tampered with his property in the woods. She fixed Nathan with a knowing look. Since tampering with illegal bear traps isn't actually a crime, I'm more interested in who said it in the first place. You know it was Wade, Nathan replied, accepting a mug from Olivia. He's been poaching in these woods for years. Knowing and proving are different things, Kate sighed. But that's not why I'm really here. She took a long sip of coffee, then set her mug down with deliberate care. There's talk in town about old Joseph visiting your place yesterday, about a baby who can communicate with bears. Nathan and Olivia exchanged alarmed glances. Kate noticed, nodding slightly as if confirming a suspicion. Small towns, she said, by way of explanation. Nothing stays secret for long, especially when it involves Joseph. He doesn't leave the reservation much these days. You know him? Olivia asked. Known him all my life. My grandmother was from the same tribe. Kate's expression softened with respect. He's the real deal, last of the traditional medicine men. If he came to you, it wasn't by chance. Nathan leaned forward. Then you believe what happened? About Emma and the bears? Kate was quiet for a long moment, watching Emma play contentedly on her blanket. Let's just say I've seen enough in these mountains to keep an open mind. She turned back to Nathan. But I'm more concerned about what's coming, the development plans. You know about that too? It's my job to know, Kate replied. Sunrise Development Corporation. They've been buying up parcels all through the valley. This section's their latest target. Can't you stop them? Olivia asked. This is protected land. Kate's expression turned grim. Politics. The new county commissioner used to sit on their board of directors. Suddenly, protected status is open to interpretation. She looked out the window toward the forest. But there might be another way to block them. How? Nathan asked eagerly. If this land could be claimed as ancestrally significant to the local tribe, it would trigger federal protections that override county-level decisions. Kate tapped her fingers thoughtfully against her mug. The problem is proving historical connection. The tribe would need evidence of continuous cultural use, sacred sites, that sort of thing. Hope flickered in Nathan's chest. And would old Joseph know about such sites? If anyone would, it's him, Kate confirmed. But getting him to document them for a legal claim is another matter. The old ways aren't meant to be shared with outsiders or written down in government forms. As they talked, Emma had grown increasingly restless, making small sounds of distress. Olivia picked her up, trying to soothe her, but the baby's agitation only increased. She twisted in her mother's arms, reaching toward the window with unusual determination. "What's wrong, sweetie?" Olivia murmured, following Emma's gaze. "There's nothing out there." But Kate had risen, moving to the window with sudden alertness. "Smoke," she said sharply, pointing to a thin gray column rising above the distant trees. "That's not a campfire." Nathan was on his feet instantly. "Where?" "Northwest, maybe 2 miles." Kate was already heading for the door, professional instincts taking over. Could be natural, but with Harmon out there hunting, the implication hung in the air. Fire was sometimes used by unscrupulous hunters to drive game toward waiting guns. In the dry, late summer conditions, even a small blaze could quickly become catastrophic. "I need to check it out," Kate said, retrieving her hat. "You folks stay here. If it's a wildfire, I'll send an alert. Be ready to evacuate." "I'm coming with you," Nathan said firmly. "I know these woods better than most. And if Wade's involved?" Kate assessed him briefly, then nodded. "Fine, but we move fast and quiet." Olivia clutched Emma tighter, worry etched across her face. "Be careful," she told Nathan as he grabbed his pack. "Something doesn't feel right about this." He kissed them both quickly. "Lock the doors. I'll be back as soon as I can." Outside, Kate radioed her position to dispatch, reporting the smoke and requesting standby for fire crews if needed. Then she and Nathan set off at a brisk pace, following game trails that would lead them toward the source. "You think Harmon started it deliberately?" Nathan asked as they moved through the underbrush. Kate's expression was grim. "Wouldn't put it past him. Man's got a vendetta against predators. Blames a bear for killing his hunting dogs years back, though, if you ask me, he probably ran them too hard and too far." As they drew closer to the smoke, a new sound reached them, the distressed bawling of a bear cub. Nathan's heart sank. He knew instantly which cub it was and what Wade had done. They crested a small rise and the scene came into horrifying focus. A circle of flames surrounded a small clearing, the fire spreading quickly through the dry underbrush. In the center, trapped by the advancing flames, the bear cub limped frantically back and forth, searching for escape. Of the mother bear, there was no sign. "Damn him!" Kate spat, pulling out her radio to call for emergency response. "This is deliberate. He's using the cub as bait." Nathan scanned the surrounding forest, knowing Wade would be positioned somewhere with a clear shot, waiting for the mother to attempt a rescue. "We have to get the cub out before the mother comes back." "Too dangerous," Kate argued. "The fire's spreading too fast, and if Harmon's out there with a rifle—" But Nathan was already moving, calculating the narrowest point in the fire line. Without his intervention, the cub would either burn or be shot when its mother appeared. Neither outcome was acceptable. "Cover me," he called back to Kate, "and watch for Wade." Before the ranger could stop him, Nathan had shrugged off his pack and was sprinting toward the fire line. Using his jacket to shield his face, he leaped through the narrowest section of flames, feeling the searing heat against his legs as he cleared the burning underbrush. The cub cowered as he approached, backing away with frightened whimpers. The injury to its leg had been aggravated, fresh blood matting the fur. "It's okay," Nathan said softly, crouching to appear less threatening. "Remember me? I'm here to help." To his amazement, the cub stopped retreating, its nose working as it caught his scent. Recognition flickered in its eyes. Or perhaps it was simply the desperation of a terrified animal with nowhere else to turn. Either way, when Nathan slowly approached and gathered the small creature into his arms, it offered no resistance. Its body trembled against his chest, heart racing with fear. Finding their escape route now blocked by advancing flames, Nathan turned in a circle, seeking another way out. The fire was growing rapidly, feeding on dry pine needles and drought-stressed vegetation. Smoke burned his lungs, making it difficult to breathe or see clearly. "Nathan!" Kate's voice reached him through the crackling flames. "Northwest corner. The fire's thinner there." Clutching the cub tightly, Nathan ran toward the indicated direction, ducking low beneath the thickening smoke. The cub pressed against him, no longer struggling but whimpering softly with each jolting step. As he neared what appeared to be a gap in the flames, a sharp crack split the air, the unmistakable sound of a rifle shot. Something tugged at his sleeve, followed by the distant shout of Kate's voice, though he couldn't make out her words through the roar of the fire. Another shot, closer this time. Wade was firing at him, or at the cub in his arms. Either way, he was running out of time. With a final desperate surge, Nathan charged through the gap in the flames, feeling the heat singe his hair and eyebrows as he burst through to relatively clear air. Kate was there, her own jacket wrapped around her arm as a shield, reaching to pull him farther from the advancing fire. "Are you hit?" she demanded, eyes scanning him for injuries. "No," he gasped, still clutching the trembling cub. "But Wade's out there somewhere." Kate's face hardened. "Not anymore. I spotted him on the ridge. He's running for his truck." She examined the frightened cub with professional concern. "That little one needs medical attention, and we need to find the mother." As if summoned by her words, a thunderous roar echoed through the burning forest. The mother bear burst from the trees 30 yards away, her powerful form silhouetted against the flames. Seeing her cub in Nathan's arms, she charged toward them with terrifying speed. "Drop the cub and back away slowly," Kate ordered, her hand moving to the sidearm at her hip. "I'll try to hold her off." But Nathan stood his ground, an inexplicable certainty guiding his actions. "Number, trust me." With gentle movements, he set the cub down on the ground before him, then straightened and stepped back, raising his empty hands to show he meant no harm. The mother bear slowed her charge, confusion evident in her posture as she processed the scene. Her cub being released rather than threatened, the humans backing away rather than attacking. The cub limped toward its mother with plaintive cries, and the massive bear gathered it close with surprising gentleness, inspecting it for new injuries. Then, still watching Nathan and Kate, she began to back away toward the safety of the unburned forest. "That's it," Nathan encouraged softly. "Take your baby and go." Before disappearing into the trees, the mother bear rose briefly onto her hind legs, fixing them with a long, unreadable stare. Then she dropped back to all fours and vanished with her cub, leaving only swaying branches to mark their passage. 20 years in these woods," Kate said, her voice filled with wonder. "Never seen anything like that." Nathan's reply was interrupted by the distant wail of sirens, the fire crews responding to Kate's call. "We should get back to the cabin," he said urgently. "I need to make sure Olivia and Emma are safe." As they hurried back through the forest, taking a wide berth around the spreading fire, Kate radioed updates to the response team. "Definitely arson," she concluded grimly. "And I've got a pretty good idea who's responsible." "Will you be able to prove it was Wade?" Nathan asked. Kate's smile was wolfish. "Left plenty of evidence behind, boot prints, cigarette butts, even a shell casing from his rifle. In his hurry to get away, he got sloppy." Her expression sobered. "But that won't stop the development plans. We still need to find a way to protect this land permanently." They reached the cabin to find Olivia pacing anxiously on the porch, Emma clutched tightly in her arms. At the sight of Nathan, she ran to him, relief and fear mingling on her face. "You smell like smoke," she said, examining him for injuries. "What happened?" As Nathan explained, Emma grew increasingly animated, reaching toward him with urgent sounds. When he took her in his arms, she immediately pressed her small hands against his face, as if checking that he was truly unharmed. "The cub is safe," he told her, feeling only slightly foolish for speaking to his infant daughter, as if she could understand complex situations. Its mother came and took it away from the fire. To his astonishment, Emma settled instantly, a contented expression replacing her earlier distress. She patted his cheek gently, then yawned and nestled against his shoulder. Kate watched this interaction with thoughtful eyes. "You know," she said slowly, "there are old stories among the tribal elders about children born with special connections to the forest and its creatures. They called them Iwigara, the kinship of all living things." "You think that's what's happening with Emma?" Olivia asked, her voice a mixture of wonder and concern. The ranger shrugged. "I'm just saying the stories exist, and in my experience, most legends have at least a kernel of truth." She settled her hat more firmly on her head. "I need to get back to the fire site, coordinate with the crews. You folks stay safe. I'll be in touch about Wade." As Kate drove away, the cabin's satellite phone began to ring again. Nathan handed Emma back to Olivia and went to answer it, expecting perhaps an update from his colleague at the university. Instead, old Joseph's voice greeted him, so clear it seemed impossible coming through the often patchy connection. "The forest is burning," the old man said without preamble. "The balance shifts further." "How did you know?" Nathan asked, though nothing about Joseph's knowledge surprised him any more. "The same way your daughter knows," came the cryptic reply. "I will come tomorrow at dawn. Be prepared for a journey, all three of you." "A journey where?" "To the heart," Joseph answered, "where the oldest trees remember the first promises." The line went dead before Nathan could ask more questions. He relayed the conversation to Olivia, who listened with a thoughtful expression. "I think we should go," she said, surprising him. "Whatever's happening here, Joseph understands it in a way we don't, and it involves Emma." Nathan looked at his daughter, now sleeping peacefully in her mother's arms. In just 2 days, his orderly, scientific worldview had been shattered. Bears that understood human intent, a forest fire that seemed more than coincidence, development plans threatening their home, and at the center of it all, his infant daughter with her impossible awareness. "All right," he agreed, "tomorrow at dawn." That night, as a team of firefighters worked to contain the blaze 2 miles away, the family prepared for whatever the morning might bring. Nathan packed essentials: water, food, first aid supplies, an extra blanket for Emma. Olivia sorted through the baby's things, selecting warm clothes and comfort items. Neither spoke much, both lost in their own thoughts about what was unfolding around them. As they finally settled into bed, Emma sleeping in her bassinet between them, Olivia reached for Nathan's hand in the darkness. "Are you afraid?" she asked softly. He considered the question carefully. "Not of Joseph or whatever he wants to show us," he replied, "but of what it all means for Emma, for her future." He squeezed her fingers gently. "What if she really is different? Special in a way that sets her apart? Then we'll help her navigate it," Olivia said with quiet certainty. "Together." In the deep hours of the night, while her parents slept fitfully, Emma's eyes opened to the darkness. She made no sound, simply gazing at the ceiling as if seeing beyond it to the star-filled sky above. Outside, a soft, huffing breath fogged the window glass, the mother bear keeping silent vigil over the cabin where the strange human infant slept. Their connection, impossible yet undeniable, hummed like a current between them through the cabin walls. And deeper in the forest, beyond the reach of the controlled fire. Ancient trees stirred in the night breeze, whispering secrets only the oldest living things could remember. Secrets about promises made long ago, about balance and belonging, about children born with the forest in their blood. Secrets that would begin to reveal themselves with the coming dawn. At first light, old Joseph's truck materialized from the morning mist like a vision. He stepped out slowly, his weathered face serene as he surveyed the cabin. Nathan and Olivia were already waiting on the porch, Emma awake and alert in her mother's arms. "The fire is contained," Joseph said without preamble. "But greater dangers gather. We must go now." They loaded into his truck without question, Emma surprisingly calm for such an early disruption to her routine. As they drove deeper into the forest along roads Nathan didn't recognize, old Joseph finally spoke. "Your daughter dreams the old dreams," he said, glancing at Emma through the rearview mirror. "The same dreams that came to my grandmother and her grandmother before. Dreams of when humans and animals spoke one language, when the forest itself was alive with consciousness." The truck turned onto what was barely a path, branches scraping the sides as they climbed steadily upward. After an hour of increasingly rough travel, Joseph stopped at a small clearing where the trees seemed impossibly tall, their canopy so thick it created a green twilight even in morning sun. "From here we walk," he announced. The trail was ancient, worn by countless generations of feet. Joseph led with surprising agility, pausing occasionally to touch certain trees or murmur words in his native language. Nathan carried Emma against his chest in a soft carrier, feeling her unusual stillness as she absorbed their surroundings with wide eyes. After what felt like miles but was probably less than one, the trees opened into a hidden valley. At its center stood a tree unlike any Nathan had seen in his years of forestry work. A massive cedar whose trunk would take a dozen people to encircle, its bark scarred with age but still vibrantly alive. Around its base, carved stones formed a rough circle, their surfaces worn smooth by time. "The heart tree," Joseph said softly, "where my people came to make the first promise." He approached the tree and placed his palm against its bark. To Nathan's amazement, the entire clearing seemed to pulse with subtle energy, as if awakening to their presence. "Long ago," Joseph began, his voice taking on the cadence of ritual storytelling, "when the world was younger and the barriers between realms were thin, a child was born to our tribe. A child who could speak to all living things, who understood the language of root and branch, of fur and feather." As he spoke, Emma grew increasingly animated, reaching toward the great tree with obvious yearning. Olivia looked at Nathan with wonder and trepidation mingling in her eyes. "This child grew to be a great mediator," Joseph continued. "When disputes arose between humans and the forest dwellers, she would listen to both sides and find harmony. But she knew her gift was rare, possibly unique. So she came to this tree, the oldest living thing in our world, and made a bargain." The morning air grew thick with anticipation. Even the birds had fallen silent. She asked the tree to hold her gift in trust, to keep it safe until the world had need of it again. In return, she bound her bloodline to the forest's protection. As long as her descendants honored the wild places, the gift would sleep. But if the balance was threatened, Joseph turned to face them directly. The gift would awaken in a child of her line. Nathan felt the pieces clicking into place. "You think Emma. I know," Joseph corrected gently. "Your wife carries the blood, though thinned by generations and distance. The fire, the threats to this land, your daughter's calling, all are connected." Olivia clutched Emma tighter. "But we're not from your tribe. I'm not Native American." Joseph smiled. Blood wanders where it will. My grandmother's sister fell in love with a trader, left to make a life in distant cities. Her children forgot the old ways, but the promise remembers. He gestured to the tree. Place the child against the bark. Nathan and Olivia exchanged uncertain glances, but Emma was already straining toward the tree, her entire being focused on the ancient cedar. Slowly, Olivia approached and placed her daughter's small palm against the rough bark. The effect was immediate and breathtaking. A warmth spread from the point of contact, not heat, but something more fundamental. The warmth of connection, of recognition. Emma's delighted laugh rang through the clearing as the tree itself seemed to pulse with gentle light. Around them, the forest came alive in ways that defied explanation. Birds of every species filled the branches, watching with intelligent eyes. Deer emerged from the undergrowth, unafraid, and padding into the clearing with quiet dignity came the mother bear and her limping cub. The awakening, Joseph breathed, wonder and satisfaction mingling in his voice. The forest recognizes its voice. Emma's eyes, when she turned from the tree, held a depth that seemed impossible in an infant. She looked at each person, each creature, with equal recognition and affection. When her gaze fell on the injured cub, she made a soft, calling sound. The cub approached without hesitation, no longer limping. As it drew nearer, Nathan saw that its injured leg appeared completely healed, the fur glossy and unmarked where wounds had been just hours before. "How?" Olivia whispered. "The old magic runs deep here," Joseph replied. "Your daughter's the bridge between worlds, human and wild, seen and unseen. Through her, the ancient connections are restored." Nathan watched in awe as Emma interacted with the forest creatures, each approaching her with reverence. But his scientific mind couldn't help but ask, what about the development? Wade Harmon. The real-world threats. Joseph's expression was knowing. The men who would destroy this place will find their plans failing. Pipers will be lost, permits denied, funding withdrawn. The forest has ways of protecting itself when its voice can be heard. He looked meaningfully at Emma. And now it can be heard very clearly. As if to emphasize his words, Kate Summers emerged from the tree line, accompanied by two tribal elders Nathan hadn't seen before. The ranger's usual professional demeanor was replaced by something approaching reverence. "The fire's completely out," she reported, "and we found enough evidence to put Wade away for a long time. Turns out he's connected to the development company. They were paying him to clear the land of problem wildlife." One of the elders stepped forward, producing a rolled document. "More importantly, we've documented this entire valley as a sacred site. The heart tree alone is enough to invoke federal protection. No development can proceed." Nathan felt a surge of relief, but Olivia was focused on their daughter. Emma had grown sleepy, the morning's revelations apparently exhausting for her small form. But she seemed transformed. Not physically, but in some indefinable way that suggested she had found her place in the world. "What happens now?" Olivia asked Joseph. "How do we raise a child with such a gift?" The old man's smile was gentle. "You raise her as you would any child, with love, guidance, and patience. She will know when to use her gift and when to simply be a little girl. The forest will teach her, as it taught those who came before." He placed a weathered hand on both parents' shoulders. "And you will not be alone. The tribe remembers its own." As they prepared to leave the sacred clearing, Nathan took one last look around. The gathered animals were dispersing back into the forest, their purpose fulfilled. But the mother bear remained, watching them with those intelligent eyes that had first challenged everything Nathan believed. Emma, drowsy in her mother's arms, lifted one small hand in farewell. The bear rose onto her hind legs, returning the gesture in a way that no longer seemed impossible, merely wondrous. Then she turned and vanished into the trees with her healed cub, leaving only swaying branches to mark their passage. The walk back to Joseph's truck was peaceful, filled with the normal sounds of a forest no longer in crisis. But Nathan knew nothing would be truly normal again. His daughter would grow up spanning two worlds, speaking for those who had no human voice, protecting the wild places that sustained all life. That evening, as they sat on their cabin porch watching the sunset paint the forest gold, Nathan reflected on the day's revelations. The development threats were ended, Wade Harmon would face justice, and their home was secure. But more than that, they had discovered their place in a larger story, an ancient promise renewed, a sacred trust passed to a new generation. Emma slept peacefully between them, occasionally making soft sounds that might have been dreams or might have been conversations with the watching forest. In the deepening twilight, Nathan could just make out a familiar shape at the forest's edge, the mother bear, maintaining her vigil over the cabin where the forest's voice slept. "She's watching over Emma," Olivia observed, following his gaze. "Protecting her own," Nathan agreed, understanding at last that the boundaries between human and wild were illusions. In the end, they were all part of the same living tapestry, connected by threads both ancient and eternal. As the stars emerged overhead, a great horned owl called from the heart tree's distant valley. Another answered from closer by, then another, until the night itself seemed to pulse with life and promise. Emma stirred in her sleep, smiling at sounds only she could fully understand, while her parents held her close and listened to the forest's lullaby. Some children are born to change the world through invention or discovery, through art or leadership. Emma Reed had been born to an older calling, to stand between worlds and speak for those who could not speak for themselves. In a time when such voices were desperately needed, the forest had called forth its guardian, and she had answered, as innocent and powerful as the dawn itself, reminding humanity that some connections run deeper than civilization, older than memory, and more vital than any could imagine. In her small hands lay the promise of balance restored, of ancient wisdoms preserved, and of a future where the wild heart of the world would never be silenced. The forest whispered its approval through the darkness, and somewhere in the vast web of life, the heart tree pulsed with quiet satisfaction. The promise had been kept, the voice had returned, and in a small cabin at the edge of forever, a child slept peacefully, dreaming the dreams of all living things.